Kia ora, I'm Ella, a Year 3 tauira at Brightwell School. My Rutherford 150 question is, what did he love being involved in when he was at Nelson College?
Kia ora, my name is Ollie and I'm a Year 13 student at Nelson College. My Rutherford 150 question on behalf of the students from Brightwater School is, what did Ernest Rutherford enjoy being involved in when he was at Nelson College?
Kia ora, I'm Georgia. I'm a geologist at GNS Science, Te Puao. My mahi is related to reconstructing past climate change, and that relates to Rutherford's research because I use radioactive decay to date and age the sediments and rocks that I work on. The tauira question that I am answering today is, what did Rutherford enjoy when he was at Nelson College? So Rutherford was a keen rugby player, and his teammates said of him that he was not quite so brilliant on the field as he was in the laboratory, but that he was a good, honest worker. He was also head boy and Dux, which is a high academic achievement. And so his nickname was Quacks. That's all from me. Ngā mihi nui.
Kia ora, I'm James, a Year 3 tauira at Brightwater School. My Rutherford 150 question is, how did he become interested in science?
Kia ora, ko Oliver toku ingoa and I'm a Year 13 student from Nelson College. My Rutherford 150 question on behalf of students from Brightwater Primary is, how did Ernest become interested in science?
Kia ora, ko Juliet toku ingoa. I'm a medical physics registrar currently studying at the University of Canterbury. My mahi is on radiation oncology, and this relates to Rutherford because his discoveries surrounding radioactivity helped pave the way for the clinical use of radiation in treating cancer. The tauira question I'm answering is, how did Rutherford become interested in science? Rutherford became interested in science at the age of 10 years old when he was at school and he was given his first science book. His family was living in the town of Fox Hill at the time.
Kia ora, I'm James, a Year 3 tauira at Brightwater School. My Rutherford 150 question is, what school did he go to in the Nelson area?
Kia ora, ko Lien Chin toku ingoa, and I am Year 13 tauira from Nelson College. My Rutherford 150 question on behalf of students from Brightwater Primary is, what schools did he go to in the Nelson Tasman area?
Kia ora, ko Rodrigo toku ingoa. I'm a physicist with the Royal Society Te Aparangi at the University of Canterbury, and my mahi is solid state physics, material science, and nanotechnology. And it relates to Rutherford's work because, like him, I manipulate atoms to create new materials, and then I shoot subatomic particles at them to study their properties. The tauira question I'm answering is, what schools did Rutherford go to in the Nelson area? And the answer is that he studied at the Havelock School first, and then at the Nelson College.
Kia ora, I'm Jackson, a Year 4 tauira at Brightwood School. My Rutherford 150 question is, where and when was Ernest Rutherford born?
Kia ora, ko Caleb toku ingoa, and I'm a Year 13 tauira from Nelson College. My Rutherford 150 question on behalf of students from Brightwater Primary is, where and when was Ernest Rutherford born?
Kia ora, ko Sarah Masters toku ingoa. I am a structural chemist at the University of Canterbury, Te Whare Wānanga o Waitaha. My mahi is using computational and experimental methods to discover the structure of molecules. And this relates to Rutherford because I use electrons as a tool to look at molecular structure, and Rutherford was part of the team that discovered electrons. The tauira question that I am answering is, where and when was Ernest Rutherford born? The answer is that Ernest Rutherford was born on the 30th of August 1871 at Spring Grove, Brightwater, in the beautiful Nelson Tasman region of Aotearoa, New Zealand. Kia ora.
Kia ora, I'm Lani, a Year 4 tauira at Brightwater School. My Rutherford 150 question is, what discoveries did he make in science?
Briefly, and telling you just a little bit of his many discoveries, Rutherford did experiments to work out the structure of the atom as we know it today. He was part of the team that discovered electrons, he named protons, and also predicted the existence of neutrons, which was later proved in the 1930s, leading to a Nobel Prize for James Chadwick. Rutherford discovered alpha, beta, and gamma radiation, and with Frederick Soddy showed that radioactivity involves the spontaneous breakdown of atoms into other matter. And it was for this work that he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1908. Kia ora.
Hi, ko Florence tuku ringawa. I'm a year 4 tauira at Brightwater School. My Lord Rutherford 150 question is, what tragedies happened that affected his family in his early life?
Hello, my name is Marshall. I'm a Year 13 student from Nelson College. My Rutherford 150 question on behalf of the students from Brightwater Primary is, what tragedies happened that affected his family in his early life?
Kia ora, my name is Bill Trumpeter and I'm a material scientist at GNS Science. My mahi is using ion beams to modify and characterise materials for energy applications. This relates to Rutherford because he pioneered the nuclear physics which we still use today. The tauira question I am answering is, what tragedies happened that affected Rutherford in his early life? When Ern was only 14 years old, his 2 younger brothers tragically drowned in Pelorus Sound. Ern was supposed to have gone sailing with his brothers that day. The boat overturned and 6 young lads could not right the boat. None could swim and 2 brothers sank after clinging to the boat for over 2 hours. The tragic circumstances affected the whole family and district deeply. His mother was so affected that the older sister had to look after the family from that point on. Ern learned to swim until he could swim a mile and developed a strong athletic prowess. The tragedy and the ruggers of living in the country must have surely added strong fibres to the boy Rutherford, developing his great natural gifts of ability and character.
Kia ora, ko Ben tōku ingoa, and I'm a Year 13 tauira from Nelson College. My Rutherford 150 question is, why is there only alpha and beta particles in existence and no others?
Well, Rutherford did many experiments studying radiation. And in particular, he was looking at the composition and the different types of radiation that there are. And he found that there are indeed 3 types of radiation, which he called alpha, beta, and gamma rays. The alpha particles are the lower energy parts of the radiation, and they could be stopped by a piece of paper. And the alpha particles are helium nuclei that can be stopped by a piece of paper. The next higher energy part of the radiation spectrum is beta particles, which are electrons or positrons, and positrons are like a positive version of an electron, and they can be stopped by a thin piece of metal. And then the highest energy radiation is gamma rays, and they can be stopped by thick blocks of lead or concrete. They are the 3 types of radiation: alpha, beta, and gamma. Cheers. Bye.
Ko Jake tōku ingoa, and I'm a Year 13 tauira from Nelson College. My Rutherford 150 question is, why was Lord Rutherford nicknamed the Crocodile?
Kia ora, ko Sean tōku ingoa. I'm a natural products chemist at the University of Waikato. My mahi is on the interesting molecules from native New Zealand bush and relates to Rutherford because I also shoot small particles of things to get my results. The question I am answering is, why was Rutherford's nickname the Crocodile? And that Rutherford was nicknamed the Crocodile because he was always looking forward and never looked back.
Kia ora, ko Louis tōku ingoa, and I'm a Year 13 tauira from Nelson College. My Rutherford 150 question is, what made Rutherford such a prolific and successful scientist?
Kia ora, ko Simon Granville tōku ingoa. I'm a physicist at the Robinson Research Institute, Victoria University of Wellington. My mahi is researching magnetic materials for energy-efficient electronics, and it relates to Rutherford because I use a version of his gold foil experiment to measure how thick my materials are using alpha particles, which Rutherford discovered. The tauira question I'm answering is, what made Rutherford such a prolific and successful scientist? Rutherford made his best discoveries in research labs in Canada and Great Britain, but I think it was growing up in New Zealand that gave him this ability. He was a farm kid in Nelson and Taranaki, and exploring the countryside gave him his interest in science and in experimenting with things. And many years later, he he became well known for designing creative experiments to solve problems. And being from New Zealand, he didn't have the same scientific preconceptions or biases that the Europeans around him did. He would think about how to explain his observations, then build an experiment to test it out. As an experimental physicist, this give-it-a-go attitude really speaks to me, and is, I think, why he was so successful.
Kia ora, ko Lucas tōku ingoa, and I'm a Year 13 student from Nelson College. My Rutherford 150 question is, why did Ernest get the Chemistry Nobel Prize and not the Physics Prize?
And the answer is quite interesting. It turns out that even though Rutherford was a physicist and he was using physical methods and techniques in his work, and even though many scientists have submitted nominations for him to receive the Nobel Prize in Physics, some scientists also submitted nominations for him to receive the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. And the Nobel panel, or the Nobel committee, decided that since Rutherford has been working on a chemical element, it was more appropriate for him to receive the Nobel Prize in Chemistry.
Kia ora, ko Moss tōku ingoa, and I'm a Year 13 tauira from Nelson College. My Rutherford 150 question is, did Ernest Rutherford have any hobbies?
Like lots of uni students, Rutherford had quite a few interests. While he was studying for his degrees at Canterbury College at the University of New Zealand in Christchurch, he played rugby, was in the debating club and the Science Society. When he got to Cambridge, he got introduced to golf, although 25-year-old Rutherford wrote he didn't think he was quite old enough to really enjoy it. By his 50s, he was playing golf most Sunday mornings with Cambridge University colleagues. He also liked driving his car, which he bought in 1910. He'd zoom around at speeds of up to 25 miles per hour, about 40 kilometres per hour, but anything faster than that would get him a ticket.
Kia ora, ko Robbie tōku ingoa, and I'm a Year 13 student from Nelson College. My Rutherford 150 question is, why did Ernest leave Nelson College his pipe and tobacco pouch in his will?
Kia ora. My name is Cather Simpson, and I'm a professor of physics and chemistry at the University of Auckland. My mahi is on lasers and how we use light to do useful things. My work is inspired and enabled by Rutherford's discovery of the structure of the atom. That's how we know what happens when light interacts with materials, like photosynthesis or vision or laser machining. The tauira question I'm going to answer today is, why did Rutherford leave Nelson College his pipe and tobacco pouch of all things? That's a very good question. No one knows for sure, but here's the best answer we've got. When he died, Rutherford left Nelson College 100 pounds because the college was so special to him. He went to school there. Lady Mary Rutherford came back to New Zealand and wrote the college a letter in 1938 saying she wanted to come visit. She offered to leave the last personal effects she had of Rutherford's to the college, probably because of that special relationship. That gift included the pipe, the tobacco pouch, spectacles, and some of his books. And that's how those items wound up there. Thank you very much for an excellent question.
Kia ora, ko Sam tōku ingoa, and I'm a Year 13 tauira from Nelson College. My Rutherford 150 question is, how did Ernest Rutherford Ital focus a beam of particles in the gold foil experiment?
Kia ora, ko Justin Hodgkiss tōku ingoa. I'm a physical chemist at Te Herenga Waka Victoria University Wellington, and in my mahi I use lasers to watch molecules reacting and vibrating on the femtosecond timescale. And this relates to Rutherford and his model of the atom, because we always find that electrons, since they're so light, they always move so much faster than the heavy nuclei. Now, the tauira question that I'm answering today is, how did Rutherford et al. Focus the particle beam in the gold foil experiment? And the answer is actually quite simple. So their alpha particle source, their positively charged alpha particles, came from radon gas, which is decaying radium. And they contained this in a tube inside of a big lead block, and the lead block absorbed most of the particles, but they drilled a tiny hole straight through from the outside right into the radon gas, so that only alpha particles that were perfectly aligned with that hole could escape. And there they had a beam of alpha particles shooting towards the gold foil. Kia ora.
Kia ora, ko Tim McElroy tōku ingoa, and I'm a Year 13 tauira from Nelson College. My Rutherford 150 question is, how did Ernest discover the proton?
Kia ora koutou katoa, ko Richard Hartron tōku ingoa.
I am a Professor of Chemistry at the University of Canterbury and also Secretary General of the International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry, IUPAC. IUPAC looks after the periodic table. It's one of the things that it's most famous for. The periodic table contains all of the chemical elements, and they are different from each other because of the different number of protons that they have. And that brings me to the question about Rutherford. The question is, how did Rutherford discover protons, those things that make the elements different from each other? What he did was he did an experiment where he bombarded nitrogen-14 with alpha particles, which are helium nuclei, and he discovered that one of the things that happened in that experiment was that protons were emitted from the nitrogen atom. He detected those protons, realized that they were hydrogen nuclei, and called them protons.